You're listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner.
Hey guys, Charge here at Zoom the TBT, and tonight we have Gautam Kapur of India Rising. This is an exciting show. Love having you on. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be here.
Okay, so let's get right in this. I want to get into what is the genesis of this team? How did this entire movement of brown ballers come about?
It's a great question, one we get all the time. I mean, the facts are as follows. There's 10 million plus brown basketball players around the world. India is the world's largest population. It's just a massive market that loves basketball and is tired of the stereotypes. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. We were one of the tallest teams in the TBT last year. We have players that have played across the league, G League, pro leagues overseas, academics and athletics. They're not mutually exclusive for us. So our mission is all about defeating all the stereotypes that brown athletes face today and improving the brand of brown ballers around the world.
Yeah, so last year you guys were in the TBT for the first time. You played up in Syracuse, and obviously tough loss. Boeheim's Army is a great team, but obviously you must have had a great experience because you're back for more in year two. So what kind of impact did that first year TBT have on the community you're trying to, kind of serve and bring awareness to and dispel some of those myths you talked about?
It's big for us in a lot of ways. Playing Boeheim's Army, playing the defending champs, always going to be tough. But we're excited to be back and feeling really confident about our chances this year. We've made a lot of changes to our rosters. And we've also had the chance to really scout. We actually spent the past year in India, in Canada, in the US, hosting in-person tryouts to find players. And the impact it's had on the community, to your point, has been massive because it's giving guys who didn't have a pathway something to look forward to in the summer. Like anyone else in the TBT, these guys are all pros. They're getting paid to play basketball September through May all over the world. We have guys on our roster playing in Australia, Ukraine, Finland, India, etc., Taiwan. But now for the summer, they have an opportunity to do something for the culture, which is so different than what they're usually playing for. So I think the potential for year two is much more than what we had when we were just getting started.
So I was going to go a different direction, but hearing that's really inspiring because I think a lot of what gets teams in the tournament is a sort of a passion and willingness to lay themselves out there. And I won't lie to you, the first time we saw you on the roster last year as a team, I was like, this isn't gonna, what is this? I don't even understand what this is. And then you saw the level of passion. I saw you guys play in Syracuse, and I also saw the dedication you're putting in it. Hearing you're literally scouting across the globe shows a lot of dedication. So what is the end game of this? How big can basketball get in India? How big is basketball in India? Is it big? Is it the most major sport besides cricket or soccer? Where's it rank?
Yeah, it's definitely not number one or two or three. It's a top 5 sport, and it is so beloved by the top influencers in India, Bollywood stars. And India's had a good relationship with basketball for a long time. I think one misconception is that playing basketball in India is about say Western validation or doing something to look cool. But in reality, there are courts in India that have been around longer than the NBA has been in existence. India had sent a team to the Olympics in 1980 to play men's basketball. And I just think we've never really, until now with India Rising and Brown Ballers, had a platform to really tell these stories to the basketball community. It's a long journey that we're on. This is just year 2 of TBT, but the end game, to your point, is redefining what it means to be a brown athlete in the basketball ecosystem. That's what this is about.
Okay, that's actually really cool because and long-term listeners of the show know Charles and I are both. He's married. I'm not married. I have a partner, which is close enough. We've been there forever. She's actually Indian. So in fact, she mostly speaks English, but she knows a little Gujarati because her family's originally from Mumbai. So the thing is, basketball, a big thing about basketball is shit talking. Let's be very honest about that. Like every culture, if you're in a court, you're talking shit. No matter who you are. So like, what is the shit talking language of your players? I assume there's a lot of English, but what is the Indian language? And can you say one good basketball incident in the same language? Is there a way to get around that? Like what are people talking shit in your courts?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, like, yeah, there's 30 plus languages across India. Obviously a lot of our players are from the diaspora, right? So they're speaking English, obviously, in Canada.
That's a big word for a lot of our listeners too. You might want to explain that just because we understand what it is, but like our fans are dumb, let's be honest.
So the diaspora, I get in trouble for this all the time because everyone's like, that's just like not a common word, which makes sense. Like it is a population, it's like a migrant population. So like Americans living in Australia, those people would be like part of the American diaspora in Australia. So all the Indians living in Canada and the US are part of the Indian diaspora, and it's the world's largest diaspora is the Indian diaspora. So what I meant to say is in terms of languages, and we had this last year actually, some of our players, their main language is Punjabi. They know Punjabi better than English. And there were actually certain times on the court where we'd have to make sure that there wasn't just one Punjabi speaking player, but two at minimum to be able to communicate on the court. At the same time though, like that's like a nice story angle, but like basketball is a language, like regardless of whether you need to talk or not, like reading screens, like being able to communicate on what we need to do on defense or offense, like you don't even need language to do that. It's just universal. But yeah, to answer your question, Punjabi is probably beyond English, like the most common language on our team.
And we're not gonna get the insult out of you. You're too classy for that. You're just not.
Maybe not live. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. We'll do it off camera.
Yeah, so we talked about how big India Rising has been growing into TBT community and overseas. Same thing with your social media under Brown Ballers is just phenomenal account to follow and learn more about the Brown Ballers. But you guys did a tryout this year. I don't know where the first tryout was. I know you moved to top 50 to New Delhi, but tell us about that tryout. It was massive. You had 500 plus people come to try out for India Rising for the opportunity to get one spot on your team in the TBT.
Yeah. It was something that we hadn't done last year that we really wanted to do for year two, because if we're talking about creating platforms and opportunities, like we have to do that in India itself. So our number one priority after TBT last year was we need to be in India, boots on the ground, and host a tryout. So we had 500 plus players apply. We hosted 50 at an academy and ran through a bunch of drills, scrimmages, and ultimately picked one player who's going to join us for this upcoming tournament.
And that one player is, we're going to find out tonight?
Yeah, no, for sure. His name is Vivek Chauhan. He's a guard. He actually played at the NBA Academy. And he's currently a coach at the NBA Academy in India. He played in India's Pro League, in the Mizoram Super League in the Northeast. And I'm sure he won't mind me sharing this story. As you can imagine, stadium infrastructure in India is, not what you might expect for the most part. And he was playing in a game and there was like a leak or there was some water on the court, and he came off a really bad pivot and tore his ACL because he slipped on some water on the court. He's all good now, spent a year plus in rehab. And this is almost like a second chance or a new opportunity to go back to his pro playing days. He's a young guy. He's played both in the 5-on-5 circuit as well as the 3-on-3 circuit. Someone I've known for a long time. So we're really excited to have him on the team and do something special this year.
Yeah, so I think that what's pretty cool about your roster, you said you were doing a lot of recruiting, not only that open tryout, but United States, Canada, just really looking for the best of the best. And obviously sometimes that's the people that fit in with the the game plan for the team. But the good news for you guys is you have a good part of your core coming back. I think three of your top four scorers are coming back, and then you also have some new kind of overseas professionals. So it seems like that's kind of the best of both worlds for the 2023 roster.
Oh, for sure. Like, I love that we have some consistency, but the new additions are going to be massive.
Yeah, and the two we talked about. Oh, go ahead, Hammer.
No, go ahead.
And the two we talked about a little bit with some pretty significant professional overseas experiences, Vanky. So tell us a little bit about Vanky and some of his experience.
Yeah, Venki is such a amazing player to have on our team. He played in the G League for Memphis's franchise and now is currently playing in Australia. Um, so he'll be joining us for our run this year. We also have TJ Lal, who's played in Japan most recently and is currently playing in Canada in the CEBL. So has a lot of familiarity with the Elam ending, which is great. So we're really excited to have these two new additions to our team.
So you also have a website, I believe, that you're working on, the Brown Ballers website. You want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, no. So since last year, we saw that there's so much potential for collaborating with the TBT and other leagues in bringing these all Desi or all South Asian, all Indian teams to these tournaments. So what we're doing now is we've launched a nonprofit called Brown Ballers. And the mission of Brown Ballers is to just elevate Brown athletics around the world. Let's call it India Rising is our dream team for basketball. We want to do that in multiple sports in the coming years. Seeing the success of the TST, our hope is to hopefully be in the TST with the Brown Ballers team next year and expand it to other sports over the coming years. So if you're not already, definitely follow us at Brown Ballers on Instagram, and you can see all the latest updates and kind of what we're up to over there.
That TST was pretty legit, by the way. Did you watch all 4 days and kind of get pulled in, or did you have a
Oh my
life?
God, it was incredible. The talent that was there, the teams, like EPL representation, like it was an incredible first year.
Yeah, no, I'm not a soccer fan. I'll catch like the World Cup, and my son went and saw Wrexham overseas and went to Wales, and so I'll get bits and pieces. But I'm not a soccer fan. But that was amazingly fun watching those teams play, and it was just kind of a short sprint. Great product that TBT put out in there, kind of
Yeah,
TST
just a
kind of
great,
form. That was amazing.
great encore play, like the 7-a-side, the shortened game flow. It was just like it was a nice product of soccer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Tanner loves soccer.
Actually, it's funny. I think I actually like soccer more than you, but TST came at a really tough time of year for me. So like, I didn't get to watch. I watched 5 minutes the whole thing. I know it was good. I've heard lots of good things about it. I watched the 5 minutes I watched. I enjoyed, but like, it was 4 days. It was 4 days. I had a lot of other stuff going on. So I'm like, oh, cool. Someone won. That's amazing. Like, nice. So 1.3 million people, which is insane. I mean, it's just a lot of people, obviously. It'd probably be prohibitively expensive, but how cool would it be if India Rising were to host a region one year? We should make this truly international, right?
I'm telling you right now, if that's the plan for 2024, we're ready for it, and you heard it here first. There are stadiums that can do it, and I think it would be amazing.
They're gonna be like an international, like you get like a couple of club teams from Europe and like literally maybe an Asian team and literally have an international bracket somewhere. Like, it's funny about TST or TBT, and what I've always wondered about this is it's a uniquely American event with predominantly European athletes. I would love to see this have one region international at some point. I mean, to be fair, India is probably a bit of a flight.
Yeah,
so those flights are, since the airfare is usually at team cost, I can't imagine many people signing up for a Delhi regional. But there's absolutely no reason it can't be somewhere in Mexico, somewhere in Canada. I mean, this hasn't gotten out of the States yet, has it, Charge?
No. I think Canada would be interesting. Somewhere in Toronto, very international type city. That would be interesting to see something.
Is Toronto the biggest Indian diaspora in the States, or in the States, Toronto, in North America, isn't it? I just annexed them, by the way.
It's just as good as Rhode Island.
We just annexed Toronto.
You and geography don't mix in there.
Yeah, so in North America, like outside of say Jersey and California, like Toronto is like a massive hub, definitely. A lot of our players come from there, and last year we actually hosted our training camp in Toronto for that reason. So many of them are local. Our head coach, actually, Madhav Trivedi, he's currently the head coach of University of Toronto.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, Toronto has all those really great, calm, polite basketball players like Dylan Brooks, like the people who just like really quiet, really self-effacing kind of guys. Okay, so you guys apply to Dayton. Looking at who's applying there, it gets a bit messy. I mean, former champ Carmen's crew coming back with a revamped roster. Friday Beers, an extremely dangerous team. Also a refugee like you guys out of Syracuse. Red Scare host team. And I was in Dayton last year. It's a hard place to play. Those fans get behind them. your team is good. You definitely are a known quantity, but you're looking at the 6, 7, 8 line, right? You understand you're looking at a lower seed, correct?
Yep.
So you're getting a true road game. So how do you feel about that?
I mean, we've always had an underdog mentality, right? Regardless of what regional we're in. I think this whole team, the whole ethos, the cultural movement behind it, it's because people have counted us out when they shouldn't have. So I think status quo for us, and we head into it and compete, right? Like, I don't think whether we're 6th, 7th, 8th, or 1, 2, 3 seed, like, we'll still play the same way.
Okay. Have you started scouting some of the teams in Dayton at all? Has your coaching staff started like looking at some of the teams that are safe? Because you have an idea of about the range of the plans. So you start looking at those guys?
Yeah, no, definitely. The disparity from regional to regional is kind of wild.
Yeah. And if you're watching this, because
Exactly.
usually we're taping this Tuesday at, this is 8:30 right now. We'll probably have it released in the morning once I cut up the graphics and stuff. But it's funny because we were going to tape bracketology tonight. And we are not, because everybody's still moving around. And like, guys, there's room in Wichita. In case you're wondering, if you're listening, call Dan Friel now. Call 1-900 Moving Train, and they will get you a spot. You just have to go to Kansas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just the thing. And the thing I found interesting with this year's TV, I mean, we know any team can beat any other team on any given day. You play right, but I find this TBT just very compressed. I think people make the argument sideline cancer is head and shoulders above everyone with some of their recent signings, but it just feels really compressed that you can get down to 32 teams, 48 teams, and you're still loaded with high level overseas professionals. So I think this one here is going to be so many more upsets than we've probably ever seen in the TBT before, just because, all the teams below are getting significantly better. The top teams are, still good, but I just anticipate just kind of free for all this year TBT. So expect the unexpected, and it'd be great to see India Horizon come out and get their first TBT win in Dayton.
Absolutely. That's our
So
plan.
So Gautam, a lot of alumni teams get people from other schools. A lot of regional teams get people from other two regions. Would you guys do an affirmative action hire of somebody if you get a non-Indian player on the team?
Could you say that part again?
Would you do an affirmative action hire and get a non-Indian player on the team if he was good enough? I assume not. That's not the brand, right?
It's a good question. It's only something that has come up before. People are like, oh, like, what about a ringer? And I guess the question is just like, then what is the team name?
What's the point?
About?
Yeah.
What's the mission?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, these guys are already, like, all these players, like, they don't have anything to prove, right? Like, they're all getting pro contracts to play overseas. So like, this is really about banding together for something new.
And that's interesting because it's funny because a lot of Charge and I've been talking about this a lot about the team's motivation for getting in. And I was asking up the question. That's a joke question. That's a good
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's not a real question.
Yeah.
But the reality is, like, the alumni teams make sense. You're rooting for the school jersey. That's the easiest thing to do. And the charities, the more established charity teams like your Sideline Cancers, your ALS, the merger now, they make sense. But like, it's fairly unique to have a team really trying to put 1.3 billion people on their backs and saying, we're here, we've arrived, and we can do this. So like, what, not just for your team, but like, what's the timeline? When are we going to see a true NBA player from India? Is that something I'm going to see in the next 10 years, next 20 years? Like, it's coming, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. For a player from India, the way I answer this question is, whatever year there's a pro league in India for basketball, add plus 8 years to that. And that's the time frame where you're going to see it. Right now, there isn't like a consistent pro league in India. So the top talent has to go overseas in order to get a check to play basketball consistently, right? That's like the main hurdle, and why we haven't seen, say, Satnam Singh or someone like that.
Yeah. I mean, most people's most famous guy like Simbular, the
Right.
people think comes to mind when we think of Indian basketball players.
Right.
Is there a style of play you guys are trying to play while you're here? Is there something you're really trying to impose your will? Like, because obviously these guys all play different school or different pro teams. So is there some simplified system or something you're trying to do as a team, like to impose your will?
Yeah. It's a lot of fast breaks, a lot of 3-pointers, very like high motion offense is kind of the vision that we have for ourselves. We still need to get into training camp, and coach needs to get experience with all the guys. As you probably heard from most TBT teams, it's like the real work really starts a little bit before training camp, because all of these guys, including the coaching staff, are all coming from different places. So as much YouTube and IG clout as there is in scouting, you got to just be there in person to figure this stuff out.
Absolutely. And you got to figure out, what you've got, because like all these guys play for places and they're not coming from one system. That's one thing the alumni teams have a huge advantage for, is they play for a school. A school often has a system they roll multiple years. So they have a even shared nomenclature of plays. Like, we'll run this play. You remember when Coach X did this against Yay, and then you guys don't have that because there's not a shared history together. It's an interesting challenge to face. Charge, you want to go somewhere, right?
Yeah, of course. The one thing that, if you follow our podcast, I follow a lot of Cleveland Charge basketball. So, and I'm going to mess up his name. Let's just go Nate Son, so I don't mess it up. Is your roster set, or can we see Go Cool Nate Son back with India Rising this year?
Yeah, because he played in the G League for them. Yeah, he was drafted.
Yeah, he went to training camp and bounced around a little bit. But so I found that really cool last year. I was nerding out a little bit looking at your roster. So I know he's still playing overseas and very active in basketball. So I didn't know if your roster was set or if he's got different summer plans this year.
Yeah, no, Gokul Nitesan was an incredible addition to our team last year, and someone we're hoping to have back this year. He's currently playing in Taiwan in the starting backcourt with Jeremy Lin. So they have a long season.
Heard of that guy.
Yeah. Some of these overseas seasons, they just run so long. So like they're about to wrap up, and then we'll figure out what the plans are. But yeah, we're definitely hoping to have him back as well.
It's
I saw that today in an article. So he's playing basketball overseas in Taiwan with Jeremy Lin, working on his master's degree in something at the same time. It's just incredible to be a professional basketball player still doing all these things to advance his career on and off the course. So that's pretty phenomenal. Yeah, so I'll keep my fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll get a little Charge flavor on the India Rising team.
People forget this about the length of seasons. It's funny because TJ Steffens, who was a player we share as being fans of, because he's a Memphis guy and he's also a Charge guy. So the thing is like the reality is we both like him. And somebody mentioned he should play. I don't know if you saw his Charge. Somebody mentioned he should play for the Beale team, and he was like, "Hell no!" Like, wow, like not even the courtesy of a why. And I think it's not because he doesn't like those guys. I think it's just that it's a long season. Some of these guys just need the breather at some point. So it is interesting. Like I'm always amazed the dedication these teams can get in. Okay, so Gautam, I mean, like, it's good to have you on. Anything else? And closing this out, like, what do people need to understand as we close this out about your team going into TBT?
Yeah, I think the TLDR is that watch us regardless of you're brown or not, because it will change your perception on the people that love this game and play this game. You may live in a part of the States or overseas where you don't see that many like brown basketball players. It's a very unique style of play. But most importantly, it's just something you probably haven't seen before. So that's what I'll say. Tune in, whatever broadcast channel we'll be on. Follow us at Brown Ballers on Instagram. Support the movement if you'd like. We sell a ton of merch that all the proceeds as a nonprofit go towards player flights, hotels, accommodation. But most importantly, get ready for watching a show in sports that you've never seen before.
That's a pretty good hook, man. I really like the hook. All right, Gautam, thanks for coming on. This has been Gautam Kapur of the Brown Ballers and India Rising. And this, as always, has been Charge Hayner signing off.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner. Subscribe to YouTube, follow on Twitter, and give us your money.